Welcome to the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast, your go-to place for approachable conversations around sacred sexuality and conscious relationships. I'm your host, Janine McKinnon, certified trauma-informed sex, love, and relationship coach who's on a mission to support 1 million women and couples to experience deeper connection and more expansive pleasure inside and outside the bedroom. This is the space to go deep, to dive below surface level relationships and mess sex and explore the sacredness that sexuality and conscious relationships have to offer. Because deep connection, spiritual sexuality, full body orgasms, and transmuted sexual energy are available to everyone. And I'm here to serve the collective, to provide the knowledge, wisdom, and tools to access them. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful we're able to connect in this way, and I can't wait to dig into the contents of this episode with you. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to another Tuesday transmission episode inside the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast. Today I am back after the holiday break, which I was just really feeling into my nesting, hibernating energy. And once I had gotten through the scheduled posts, I still felt like I needed a little bit more time, and taking that pressure off of needing to perform, needing to get this content out, needing to work on this and that and the goals, and just surrendering into what I needed in the moment to not do those things. And letting go of that pressure just had everything flow through, and that inspiration hit almost immediately. And this translates quite well into the topic for today's episode, which is all about surrender. Surrender is a word I use quite frequently. It's also a word that I hear used both within the sexuality and spirituality realms in different ways, and I feel like it is quite misunderstood. In fact, in some recent Instagram posts that I did, I had some great questions coming through that really shined a light on how we can have more in-depth conversations around what surrender is, and I can explain my use of the word surrender in greater ways. Because what I feel surrender isn't necessarily what others will think of. And when we learn the art of surrender in the way in which I interpret it, we're able to really open ourselves up to this expansive pleasure and this deep, deep connection with ourselves and with our partners, because there's a lot of vulnerability that comes with surrender. And when we are very vulnerable with ourselves and with our partners, that connection deepens to this different level. And of course, the yummy orgasms and pleasure are so much fun as well. So we are going to be digging into the intricacies of all of this so you can really gain a good understanding of what the art of surrender is and how you may be able to bring this into your sex life to experience all of the juiciness that it can provide. So when it comes to surrender, I feel like often our thoughts go to physically surrendering, to submitting to our partners, allowing them to take on a dominant position within the bedroom. And yes, that can be part of it. And yes, that is some interpretations of surrender. But my perspective of surrender is a lot more nuanced than that, in that it goes to other layers than just the physicality of it. It actually has a lot more to do with where we are at mentally and where we are at with our nervous system and our sense of trust and safety within ourselves. And that might seem a little bit like complicated or a little bit confusing, but bear with me. I will also add that when it comes to surrendering, I find that sometimes people feel like it's weak to surrender. Like you're just going to surrender. Only weak people surrender. We need to take charge or to do the things or to remain in control. And I'll add that surrendering is actually one of the strongest things you can do, because again, it comes with the fact that you feel so safe within yourself, that you trust yourself and your partner so deeply, that you trust yourself to hold these sensations and waves of pleasure and whatever may come from it, and that you're willing to go there, to be vulnerable, to let go of control and allow all of these things to flow through. And you can't do that when you are acting strong and acting in control. So it really comes with a lot of strength and trust to be able to surrender. Because when you're acting strong and remaining in control, that actually comes from fear. It's very rooted in fear. And so it's actually coming off as strong and in control can be seen as a weakness because it is so rooted in fear. And so I just want to offer that perspective. And this struggle with surrender and with control is something I see quite regularly with clients, in that there is this need to control. And part of that comes with trying to control that they're going to orgasm, that they need to push out an orgasm, that they need to perform for their partner and have that orgasm, show that they are enjoying the experience, and that the main goal is that orgasm. And so they need to control and make sure that happens. Now, there can also be this control of the situation, that not necessarily physical control, again, touching to the physicality of surrender. It's not necessarily that. It's not that they need to control their bodies and what their partner is doing, but it's more so control within the mental space. And those thoughts constantly pop up because that's what it's like when you're in the mental space of control. It's very much within your thoughts and your insecurities and expectations and wishing things were done a certain way or wishing things weren't done a certain way, worried about how you may look, worried about what they may think, and this and that, and the to-do list, and all of these other things. And so when we are trying to maintain control, whether it is with the performance or the orgasm or the goal, or with all of the mental things going on in our heads, this is getting in the way of experiencing those expansive waves of pleasure. And this doesn't necessarily mean that when you're struggling with this control and not surrendering, that you're not experiencing pleasure or orgasms. Often you absolutely are, but you're stifling yourself and holding yourself back from what is truly available to you. It tends to be these short little bursts. Poof, it's gone, orgasms, and it feels great in the moment, maybe a little bit afterwards. Maybe you're able to hold on to it for a bit. And you are missing out on this waves of pleasure rolling through your body, rolling back and forth between your partner, resonating within yourself for so much longer after the act, really nourishing you and feeding your radiance and your fire from within. All of this is available through the art of surrender. So what does surrender mean? Let's break this down a little bit more. Do you desire to feel confident in your body and empowered in your sexuality? The Honeypot Meditation is a potent 12-minute visualization to support you in connecting with your sexuality and rewiring your subconscious with the confident, radiant energy you'd love to embody. Download completely free through the link in the show notes and get ready to immerse yourself in a visceral experience as you connect with your sensual, radiant essence. So Oxford's English Dictionary defines surrender as to cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. So there is something there in ceasing that resistance that I resonate with. But I think it very much goes towards what we think of, say, in war, battle, that sort of thing, where we surrender to the other side and it's very physical and seen, and you can understand in that moment what surrender means. But for me, there's more to it than that when it comes to sexuality and life in general. Now, Project Happiness defines surrendering as relinquishing resistance. It is the act of truly letting go and accepting. It actually opens up the potential for positive changes to flow. So I completely agree with this sentiment that relinquishing resistance, truly letting go and accepting, and it absolutely opens up the potential for positive changes to flow. And I think this definition can be a little bit wishy-washy and not as concrete. And I just like to offer a little bit more to what it is within the conversations that I have. So for me, surrender is relinquishing control and having full presence to whatever arises. Because yes, we can surrender, we can relinquish control, and that also requires this full presence. And I think that it can be what's left out. When we think of physically surrendering to someone, we're not necessarily thinking about that full mental side. And so that's where that idea of submission comes in. Yeah, we can still be totally caught up in our heads. We can still be physically submitting to someone else and be worried about what we look like, what they may be thinking of us, that, oh my goodness, we're not orgasming yet, we should have orgasmed, or I'm getting so close, but like this needs to happen, or all these different thoughts that pop in your head. And so that is getting in the way of that expansive orgasms. And so that's why I really add in that the art of surrender, yes, it's relinquishing control and it's having full presence to whatever arises. So I'm going to break this down a little bit more to really help give you that full understanding. So the first part, relinquishing control. That entails letting go completely on a mental and nervous system side. So it's letting go of your insecurities. It's letting go of the worry of being too much or not enough. It's letting go of the worry that you aren't doing it right, or that your partner isn't doing it right. It's letting go of the shame you have towards particular acts. That's a big one I see come up for clients, is the shame or embarrassment that can come up with certain positions or toys or different things. Even eye contact can have a lot of shame and fear tied to it. So it's letting go of all of that. And it's letting go of the expectations that you have, that things should be a certain way, that the experience is going to be a certain way, that you are going to have orgasms in a certain way. That relinquishing control is letting go of all of it, the mental shit that is holding us back. Now, tying in that full presence, it means being fully in the moment, not in your thoughts, not in your insecurities, not in the to-do list, but feeling that deep connection with your partner. Feeling these sensations that are coursing through your body, feeling the heat, the pulsations, the rise and the fall, the waves of pleasure, ever expanding, being so tuned into what is going on in your body and within your energy, and that connection with yourself and your partner. And sure, this might sound wonderful and so amazing to be so tuned into all of those different pulsations and heat and energy and all of those sexy things. And To let go of any baggage and expectations and be so in the moment can also be one of the scariest things to do, because it's extremely vulnerable to be so open with another person, to be so in the moment of doing those things that once held so much shame, yet feel so much pleasure and deep connection in that moment. It's so vulnerable and so scary. And so that's why this really is an art. It is a process. And so to experience this deep vulnerability through surrender and all of the juiciness and pleasure that comes through it, it really does require this deep sense of trust and safety. And you can have all the tips and tricks to be present, to meditate and tune into your sensations, but that's not going to do shit if you don't feel safe in your body. If you can't trust yourself to feel all of your emotions and sensations, you're not going to be able to fully surrender, because you're going to be scared, right? Because we have been trained to avoid our emotions and sensations. We have been trained to bypass and push through and get things done and ignore our body's signals and just be productive members of society. And so really feeling our emotions and sensations can be quite scary to some. It can freak you the fuck out to actually let go of control and fully feel what's going on in your body, to really feel the discomfort that comes up with vulnerability, to feel shame, allow it to pass through, and then feel pleasure through the other side. Like, that is amazing. And you can have these amazing shame orgasms. And it's a process. It can be scary as fuck to move through and really allow yourself to feel all that shame and disgust that you have for yourself. And through opening up your capacity to feel these more negative emotions and learn to accept them and move through them, you open up your capacity to feel more waves of orgasmic pleasure. And likewise, just the act of really leaning into the power of the wild woman who has that orgasmic energy coursing through your body. Like, that's super fucking intimidating at the beginning. To let yourself go so much, there can be a lot of worry of what your partner's going to think, because our society is also trained that that wild woman, so in herself, so pleasured and owning it and in her power, can be seen as scary. It can be seen as something we need to squash down. And so moving through that within yourself and then being witnessed in that with your partner, again, there's that deep, deep vulnerability, and that deep connection comes through vulnerability, through sharing that experience, through being witnessed in it, and in having that mutual pleasure rise and rise through these experiences. Has just so much intertangled deliciousness, both on the pleasure side and that deep, deep connection side. And so, as juicy as it may sound to move through all of this, it can also seem like a tall order to let go of all of our baggage, our insecurities, our shame, because shadow work, I'm all about the shadow work for these reasons. It's so impactful, but fuck, it's a lot of things to move through and work through. And that's exactly why I do the work that I do. Do you desire more in your relationship and sexuality? Whether you're excited to explore or feel held back by your challenges, I'm here to support you where you need it. I invite you to book a complimentary connection call through the link in the show notes. During our time together, you'll share your desires, and I'll provide you with just the right resources to support you wherever you are in your journey. Again, that is a complimentary connection call through the link in the show notes to spark a shift in your sexuality and relationships. It's exactly why I incorporate so much inner child healing and shadow work and somatics in my programs and coaching. Because not only can we have these learned experiences that cement insecurities and cement our fight or flight or freeze mode within our nervous systems because we've been judged in a certain way before, and moving through and unlocking these and understanding, then accepting, then loving these parts builds so much trust in ourselves, and again opens up our capacity to feel more of the juiciness of life and that this human experience has to offer us. And in my upcoming program, Ignite, we move through this. We move through the inner child healing. We move through the shadow work, and we incorporate some of the tips and tricks for moving our sexual energy through things like focus and breath, sound, and movement. We learn to train ourselves to be fully present and build trust to be able to feel safe in our bodies. I'm so excited for this program. So if you are interested in having the tools to amplify your sexual energy, to move through that mental side, that nervous system, subconscious side of things to achieve those more expansive, juicy orgasms and sexual experiences, please join us on the wait list, where I will be releasing all of the program details. The links will be in the description for that. But going back to this art of surrender, when you're able to work through these different areas of shadow work, as I like to call it, not only do you experience some pretty fantastic pleasure, but as I've touched on, your connection deepens to these new levels. It really brings you to that intimate, bonded experience with your partner that unfortunately so many couples do not maintain, and it really makes you unshakable as a couple when you're able to face your shadows and do that with someone else, with your person. When they're able to witness you in your power, you gain so much confidence that translates inside and outside the bedroom. Because when you're able to move through these things together, also have this amazing pleasure reinforcing how good doing these vulnerable things are, you become so confident and radiant in other areas of your life. Not to mention all the hormones coursing through your body as you're having these pleasurable experiences, the oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine, all these different things. It really affects your body chemistry. You tap into that life force energy. You become energetic, creative, confident, radiant in so many different areas of your life. And at its core, it really comes down to the art of surrender to be able to have all of these things. And again, it's not just physically submitting to your partner. It's surrendering into yourself. It's letting go of holding on to control and thinking this and that. It's allowing yourself to be fully present in the moment. Present and feeling that connection with your partner. And allowing the connection and orgasmic energy to flow from there without expectation or pressure or end goals. And that's how you become a sexually empowered woman through the art of surrender. And so I hope this podcast has helped clarify some things for you around surrender, especially within the context that I use it. That it's, again, more than the physical side. It's really the mental side within yourself, relinquishing control and dialing in such beautiful, focused presence that you're able to tap into this new level, this new realm. And as you follow this journey of sacred sexuality, that's where you can really begin to access altered states of consciousness. It's where you can feel this energy flowing through all different parts of your body, shooting out of your head, out your breasts. And I can get into the woo-woo spiritual side of things. And simplistically, you just feel so fucking good and feel extremely confident and radiant in all different areas of your life. Because when you're experiencing this, like, how can you not be a happier, more feminine, flowy woman? How can you not have this beautiful presence about you? It's just how it is. And so it has just such this extreme reach of how it impacts your life. And through doing something that is like super fun and juicy, and although it can be scary and vulnerable, working through the shadow work, that's why I like to hold your hand through it, whether that's through coaching or programs or the Unapologetic Practices membership. It is so powerful to do this work. It affects your life in so many ways. And you experience some incredible pleasure out of it as well. So again, I will just mention that Ignite program. I would love to have you join us. We begin in February. It's just an incredible 8-week journey that I will be taking you through, moving you through those shadows, those depths, facing these different experiences that you have taken on and these beliefs throughout your life, releasing that, finding those empowered pieces within you to feel safe as that sexually empowered woman, and then have those tools to move that orgasmic energy through you, to really be able to nourish yourself through your pleasure, show up as that radiant woman. And so the link to the waitlist is in the description. Again, that's how you get the details. That's how you get the early bird pricing. I really encourage you to get on that waitlist if you are wanting information specifically about Ignite. As always, I'm here if you have any questions at all. And I just love you so much. And I encourage you to just play with surrender in whatever way feels good for you and begin to experience more and more juiciness in your sex life. Until next time, have a juicy, pleasurable week. Thank you for joining us inside the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you feel called, I would so appreciate it if you left us a review to help us reach more women and couples so they can experience deeper connection and more expansive pleasure inside and outside the bedroom too. Until next time, embrace your desire and experience your magic.